Welcome to No Shame in Our Game. Editing Lacey here, just to let you know that this is part 2 and a continuation of our chat the previous week with our first shame interview with me, talking about the shame of the word dramatic. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to it. We'll jump right in.
You know what's interesting is, again, the whole point of this being that other people can also hear and relate and understand. And I didn't think when going into this conversation that I would relate to you on this topic because I've never been told I was being over dramatic. So dramatic to me has a very specific, again, the power of words, specific meaning. But now as you're talking, not being able to be proud of yourself, oh, I can relate to that. We don't get to celebrate our accomplishments. I mean, there was a very specific, you can be celebrated at that one ceremony where you walk across the stage and then maybe you get an ice cream cone and it's done. We don't talk about it anymore. So it's interesting. I can relate to that. So it's almost, there's this epicenter. And I think this is going to be a common theme in all of our shame stories. There's this epicenter where it's safe and anything outside of that. And so for you, anything outside of that was dramatic. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, I'm so excited. And this to me correlates so much to the work that we're doing, where those things that don't feel good are taking like Lacey, taking your energy, right? And so part of all the goodness that you could put out in the world is actually being diminished because you're spending so much energy trying to regulate inside that small circle of acceptability. And I'm also realizing when I say that, there is a little voice in my head being, yeah, and society also operates really well when we all agree to certain mores and basic decorum. So I'm torn too because there is a certain amount. You were saying if kindness with your son, kindness is important. If those big feelings are stepping on kindness, that's a line, right? So I'm also seeing, so shame really does has a reason, but it's when that shame then goes uncontrolled and then it's diminishing who you are as a person, not
I
just
also
when
think, sorry to cut you off. I think it's important, and we talk about this all the time. We live in a society that very much believes it's either this or that. The multiple things can be true at once. You know what I mean? I can love my son. I can help him and see his big feelings and validate his big feelings, but also try to inform him that the way he is handling those big feelings is the problem, not the feelings themselves. And so what I think it really comes down to is, as a society, we've tried to say, this is the right way to handle it. You know what I mean? You do this, this, and this is the right way to handle it, when it's more of an amorphous blob, you know? I also, okay, I'm gonna pause there. I do have I'm gonna get Violet. She's gonna join us. Hold on a second. I think going back to one of the things that you said, diminishing our light of who we are, this is very much related to our work in Practical Hug. And something I've talked about openly, but I think I'm going to try to be really clear about it and say it with conviction. Of when it comes to imposter syndrome, for example, a lot of people are, the solution, why not me? Da, 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 da. And then I've really started to think through this thing of course it's me. I genuinely believe that we have the ability to create and grow Practical Hug into a brand that puts us somewhere between, I don't want to say Martha Stewart because that is a very big one way, but also your Mel Robbins and Brene Brown, to be on that level. I sit there and I the more that I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I have the personality, I have the skill set, I have all of these different things that could very well happen for me, and that we could absolutely do that. I genuinely believe that the business that Sara and I are creating could pay off max. These are things that are in my brain that I hear, but then when it comes to being dramatic, I kind of shut them up a little bit, right? And so, but at the same time, am I being dramatic? I don't think. I'm starting to realize that I don't think I am. I'll never forget one of my jobs in a previous life was for a position, and I had told my current boss it was a centralized role supporting the whole university, and I was in a specific area of the university. And I told my boss at the time, "Oh, I'm applying to this." I was very clear about it because that I can't not just be upfront with things because that makes me uncomfortable to not be. And her response was, "Ugh, I guess everyone's applying for that." So really diminishing whether or not I individually could get it. And I just had this moment of, "What?" And then I had that self-doubt. By the way, who ended up getting it? Me. And I just keep thinking about that interaction of, again, not, "Why not me?" Of course it's me. And so that's this other side of dramatic of being big and putting myself out there and having these big dreams. I don't know. I'm gonna pause there.
I I'm so excited and I'm talking really slowly because I'm trying not well, I'm also playing with a puppet bunny to entertain Violet. So I am going to talk through the bunny. I'm so excited because I'm seeing how beautifully this overlaps with our work. And I'm seeing so much about how we can help people. And I how you said dim your light. And I can see how the shame that you felt may or may not have been put in place by people who didn't even know what to do with their own feelings, right? So shame begets shame. And how you are learning that if we can find a safe way, I'm thinking of a shame checklist, right? Because you were saying, well, kindness and I was mentioning societal mores, there is kind of a place to check ourselves, right?
Mhm.
We're not talking about just going hog wild and letting things go unhinged, right? But I love what you're saying about, you do think all those things are possible, but you've also said it a couple of times. You kind of got to lean into who you are more unfiltered to actually make these things happen. So there's actually power. Maybe that's it. There's power in those big feelings. And when you're in a small package as a kid and other people around you don't know what to do with that big power of yours, right? You put that big basket over that light or you dim it all the way down. And so as adults, and what we get to do at Practical Hug is help people find the safety controls. And for you, it's the safety controls to let those big feelings out, to be who you are, because by being who you are, you're giving yourself as a gift to others. And I love how this again overlaps with the self help done together. You're going to help yourself, but you're going to be helping others, the group at large. And that's beautiful. Does that feel beautiful to you?
I mean, and this is where I am constantly looking for validation, right? In my human design chart, literally one of my purposes on earth is to come and love myself loud to help
Mm,
other people do the same. Literally, that's one of the things on my chart. And so and this is the other thing that okay. It's to get resources and manage them wisely for other people. It's literally called the cross of rulership. And it's so, oh, okay, so the universe wants me to have a lot of money so that I can use it wisely. Okay. But to say these things out loud makes me feel like a crazy person. Even though I know I have the ingredients for all of these things? Yeah.
you know that old trope line from like rom-coms is if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. If being a crazy person, crazy being a label that society decides to use because it puts people in very small parameter boxes within which to live. So if crazy is living outside of that teeny tiny box to conform, if being crazy means helping other people with your beautiful gift and receiving lots of money to pay off your house and give to your community and others, if that's what being crazy is, then sign me the frick up. Like, then I wanna be crazy. There's such power with these words and this language and examining these things and finding ways out of these boxes that we've been shoved into. And I think the title of this episode is The Shame of Big Feelings. And I think when we push this out there, I think a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, I have big feelings and I have shame." So you're already doing the work.
I tell you again, another part of this is I'm supposed to just do this very like out loud and authentically. As you were talking and you said beautiful gift, I had this moment of like, is I don't know, is my gift beautiful? That feels too much. And literally that went through my head. Like to me, that says, oh, that means I'm doing something right. So I recognized that voice. I found it. I heard it. I saw it and I challenged it in that moment. Yeah. So you remember how I said sometimes it's so unconscious I can't even figure it out? I just had a moment that it was I saw it. I made it. I saw it happen. I can fight that.
So one is I wanna acknowledge that big breakthrough you just had, and I see you, and thank you for sharing that. And two is I just had a big aha moment about how we're gonna frame this and help others with these shame interviews. Growing up, so formative years, family of origin, we're taught these unspoken rules and parameters and limits that create shame as anything outside of that. But as adults, we get to examine those rules, find what aligns for us with our own values as adults, and then adjust them. And that's the safety shame adjuster. That's the checklist. You know your values are kindness. You know what your values are. And so you get to go, this big feeling, I'm feeling shame. Okay, but that's from my childhood. Okay, is this big feeling aligned with my kindness and helping others? That's your checklist. This is
Sarah
all
just
lining
designed a
up.
new tool. What
I
you're
know, I
hearing.
did. I actually did. I actually did because I get it. The shame that was imposed on us isn't about us. The shame that was imposed on us was about the people who were imposing it. And we're adults now, and we get to choose. We don't have to live within those anymore.
Can I tell you something else that has been on my mind lately that it relates to all this, but I don't know exactly how? Another part of this idea, this is not a bug, it's a feature, right? I've been thinking about my chronic illness and how I can live my chronic illness out loud in authentic ways. And so one of the ways, so okay, stick with me. So I've been thinking about how in podcasting things, it's cool for someone to come in sweats and cozy up under a blanket, and that's the vibe. I'm just sitting there, I need that. I need that mentally ill person. And so how fun would it be if I had a talk show someday? And literally how we conducted the interviews were just by how I felt that day. Maybe we had a bed set up where me and the guest could just lay in bed looking at each other. Maybe we could good, better, best our interviews based on my energy that day. Be so out loud with, my chronic illness. And it becomes a feature, a part of the story that we tell. I know Sarah and I have also talked about wanting to do a reality show that's kind of a home makeover, but instead we bring in the Hot Mess Express folks. And then while they're doing the cleaning, Sarah would work with them. I would hang out to, establish patterns going forward. And in that, I envision, me doing a talking head interview laying in bed that day, or me waving from a bed because I can't get out, but it's okay because it's part of the show. It's part of the story. And I don't know. I just keep seeing that in my mind of incorporating it as not a bug, but a feature, just a built-in thing that is part of it.
That actually, I never told you this. You had a post on Threads about chronically ill and being able to show up in silk robes from the 1920s. What did you say? Do you
1940.
remember that?
Well, I haven't been able to do it because all of my clothes that are not pregnancy/breastfeeding conducive, but I'm wearing a silk robe and pretending I'm a dramatic starlet from the 1940s on a chronically ill day. It's a little bit of whimsy when I'm not leaving bed, but look at me. I'm a 1940s starlet, exhausted from her life, of course.
I bring that up because, again, with Practical Hug and what we're doing here, that is leaning into, yeah, it's a couch day, but I'm going to bring some joy to this by wearing this. And those are some big drama feelings, 1940s starlet, silk robe. But why not? It's fun.
Yeah.
It's not hurting anyone. It's making you feel better. And so I love that we're going to just take the lid off of all of these shames for people and find ways for them to safely have whatever it is in their shame bucket and integrate it into their life in a way that feels authentic to them. Because I mean, I just wrote Unpractical Hug this week about letting my mask off a little bit. I'm exhausted of trying to conform. I just I've always this is something I've said for a long time. I felt growing up, everyone was facing north, and I was always facing north, northwest. And I kept going, oh, I'm supposed to be facing north. And I kept trying to yank myself to look in a different direction. And I think growing up, I love that expression of finding your people. I think that is finding all the other people facing north, northwest. But we're still living by these judgments of shame from the people who are facing north. No, let's embrace that we're facing north, northwest.
And embrace that it's also very nuanced. Part of
Yes.
a very because I'm about to be a communication person with you. Part of having a successful communication interaction is context and understanding the context and is operating appropriately for that context, okay? And so adapting to your audience or adapting to the situation that you're in does not make it inauthentic. It does not necessarily mean that you are putting on a mask. There are times when that is appropriate. And so I think that's where, especially people on the internet, have a very hard time with this because it's, well, what about this, this, and this? And it's, well, these different factors make it a different situation. And so, and it doesn't mean that it's making everything okay. I was thinking about my talk show thing, right? I can just picture somebody being, how lazy can you be? You can't even why do you think you get to do a talk show when you can't even sit up to do the interview? You know what I mean? And then I just had this moment of, yeah, in some environments, that's not right. But I get to create this environment. And in this environment, I made it all right. It's when you go to the Oscars, there is a dress code. It has been predetermined. And it is, and because of that, it's okay. If you want something different, you can create something different and make it okay. So I think that's part of the problem is there's so much nuance, and our society has decided that nuance leads to chaos, I guess.
Well, and honestly, I'm understanding that because I think we're at a beautiful place in history where we have enough resources that we can have nuance. I think previously when resources were limited, food was limited, land was limited, everything was limited. There really wasn't an opportunity for that nuance.
Yes.
Survival meant staying within a very strict path. So I get it. And I think we're at a point where we get to bring in a little bit more nuance because the resources are available, the diversity of opportunities are available. And I think that's part of what we get to do here at Practical Hug is say, we embrace your nuance. Your nuance is safe here. Let's explore this a little bit because we can now. I see this being 2 episodes. This is so much good context content.
I do think Violet's getting a little
Yeah, we can wrap it
frustrated.
up. We can wrap it
Yeah.
up. You wanna do well, first of all, I just wanna end by saying thank you for opening yourself up and sharing that story. We always say as long as it helps one other person, and you've already helped me, so mission accomplished.
I just want to tell you, I feel so light. Feels like my chest is just open and exploding. So feel good right now, talking about these things out loud. Now, when I go to edit this, will I cringe the entire time? Probably. But right now, I feel great.
That's our mission here. Would you like to share
Yes.
moments of joy?
Sorry. That was weird. A moment of gratitude for Violet slept through the night last night, friends. It happened. We slept through the night. Dad did a bottle at 10 and she woke up at 7.
Yeah.
The crowd goes wild. And we started the process of weaning, and I think it's doing good for all of us. So, yeah, we're moving into a new phase. And I'm sad that the Violet attached to me phase is coming to an end. I'm excited for what is coming next.
Things are true.
Sarah, what are you for? It's your moment of gratitude.
Okay, this is gonna sound so silly. So we are just super silly in my family, which I love and appreciate because I'm creating that family environment that I always wanted when I was younger. So I was driving my son to school. Usually he takes the bus, but he had an appointment, so we're driving to school. And I honestly love where my son's school is because you drive up and you get to this high point and you're actually in the middle of an apple orchard, which is amazing when the apple trees are in bloom. And then when you're at this high point, you can see across the river and you can see a mountain range. And I'm not talking Rockies here. I mean, it's a low mountain range, but I didn't I grew up in Nebraska. There was just flat. So for me, seeing a mountain range with the sun coming up and the clouds, it catches my breath every time. And so I pointed it out to my son just to take it in and appreciate it because he sees it every day, so it's easy to overlook. And I accidentally went, "Mm, mountains." But it sounded like I was making an sound. It was yummy food good. So then we started joking. We were eating the mountain. You know, if you see something and you're, yeah, I can't do it. So we were doing this back and forth all the way to the rest of the school. We were just going, mountain. And it was just so silly and so random, and it just so now every time I see the mountains, I imagine myself in my car going, mountains." How that's gonna translate on the podcast, but it made me smile.
It just made me smile, so that's good. Well, I think this is where we say thank you. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Lacey.